Awesome, we're live. Hello and welcome to this live. Today we are going to do part 3 of our Amazon Lex chatbot series. So if you haven't done parts 1 and 2 yet, please know that those lives are also in our YouTube channel in our live section of our channel. Otherwise, if you're here and you're ready to get rolling for part 3, let's get started. So what I'll do is I will screen share my screen with the AWS console and the project steps. And we are going to jump straight into the third part. So what we're going to do, I wonder where you are watching this in this world right now, but I'm looking forward to another hour of learning AWS with you. So in the third part of this AWS project on Amazon Lex, again, as always, we have 2 options for completing this project. Option 1, tell me what to do and I'll figure out some parts on my own. Option 2, give me the step-by-step guide. I'm a complete beginner and I'd like some guidance. So we will be using option 2 today because I think it is awesome to show you how detailed the step-by-step guide can be, so you know for sure that, look, even if you're starting from zero, you can absolutely do this project. You can absolutely learn AWS. And in terms of our difficulty level today, this project is easy peasy lemon squeezy, and I will just zoom in so it's easier for you to see as well. And this project will take about 60 minutes to complete, depending on how much time you spend on your project documentation, because the documentation can take between 20 minutes to maybe even 30 minutes, depending on how much time you want to put in it. So this project, of course, will cost nothing to make. Just please make sure that you delete everything in your account by the end of this. And in today's project, you are going to use Amazon Lex just like in parts 1 and 2, but the special thing about today is we're also going to start using AWS Lambda. So this is the part where we're going to start connecting Amazon Lex, our chatbot, with AWS Lambda. And you're going to see how they can work together to make your chatbot even smarter. I love this part. I feel like this is like one of the key milestone moments in your chatbot project. So I hope you enjoy. And yeah, you will be familiar that we've been using Amazon Lex to create a banking chatbot called our BankerBot. And in part 3, yep, we are going to be connecting the Lex bot with AWS Lambda. And the purpose of that is so that it can help you check your account balance. So as you can see in the screenshot here, when someone provides their birthday, now the chatbot can actually return the actual balance in dollars. You might remember that in the previous part, in part 2, when you give your birthday, the chatbot just responds, intent check balance is fulfilled. Like it's just telling you that the intent that you've built in part 2 has successfully completed. But even though it's been fulfilled, it's been completed, there was no bank balance being returned. And that was because your chatbot doesn't know how to return a balance on its own. It will need the help of AWS Lambda to make this happen. So that's what this part's all about. Yeah, it's super exciting. Let's get into it. And yeah, there are a few tips on documentation as always. And if you want more projects, there are some links at the bottom for you to follow. So the link to this page, this project guide that you see in the right-hand side of my screen, is available in the description box. You'll see the text like, do you want a step-by-step guide to this project? And there's a link to it. That link will take you to our community of AWS projects and people learning AWS together. And you'll absolutely find this project there. Now, as I promised, we're going to be choosing option 2 today to go through it step by step. So I'm going to be clicking the link for start your project on option 2. And yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty. So my browser doesn't quite like the fact that I've zoomed in quite a bit. So I'm just going to refresh this. And this should work now. Let me be sneaky and zoom in again. Yes, you can still see it. Okay, so as a reminder, please delete all your resources by the end of the day. And if you're ever stuck, ask the Nextweek community. So you can, click here to join the Nextweek community. It takes about 1 minute. And, you can even go here and under I have a question, you can see all of the questions that people post in this community. And we just help each other out on all of the projects in the community. And as you can see, we're at 430 people right now in this community, which is awesome. And as I mentioned, you can find all of the projects in here. So all of the projects that we release, everyone in the community gets first dibs, like they get to see it first before everyone else. And you get to access the step-by-step guides from here. Cool. Now, let's jump into the documentation. So as always, with our projects, you get a free documentation template as well. And you will need a Canva account to edit this template. So make a copy of the template that is given here. So this is what our documentation template looks like today. I quite like the color scheme. It is a nice and bright, kind of yellowy orange color. And yeah, when you open it, you will get to see the template looking pretty cute over here. And what you got to do is you just click on File here and make sure that you make a copy. So you make a copy of the existing template, and now you can edit this copy. This copy is now yours. So click on Files, and you can edit the title of your documentation template. So we can just click on that little pencil thing and just say, Natasha's Amazon Lex Chatbot Part 3 Project Documentation. A pretty long title. You can make it whatever you like. All right, let's get straight into it. So let's start with this part of step 0. Check out the final slide, which is a template for tracking errors. And you can see here, there is a template that says an error I ran into was, and here's where you can just document errors. Now, errors are really, truly one of the best things that you can document because it's a great way to showcase your problem-solving skills. And, you know, the whole point of seeing this at the very start of your journey is so that you remember that if you run into an error during your project, take a screenshot of it, put it down, write 2 or 3 sentences, and watch it go a really long way in terms of you showcasing your process with this project. And another cool thing to note, please just delete that title page. You don't need that anymore. And you can just get started by changing your full name to your full name. And if you notice here, you might see these icons show up all the way across your documentation template, here. And I'll show you a way to just mass change all of that in one go so you don't have to do it again and again when you do this template. But I just want to jump straight into this project now with you. And you'll notice that step 1 is a bit of a meaty step because you need to set up the Lex chatbot and the first 2 intents. So you would have done this already in part 1 of the project. You would have done this before in part 2 of the project. But we are going to start from the top, because at the end of part 1, at the end of part 2, you've had to delete all of your resources. So I know it can feel like, oh my gosh, like we're going to do all of part 1 and we're going to do all of part 2 again. But trust me that it's a lot simpler because you're doing something that you're already familiar with, and you're also skipping a bit of the documentation steps as well. So you're just going to do the actual project steps without needing to write all of your documentation, as you've already done that before. So first, we're going to create the banker bot, and that was part 1 of the project, right? So we're just going to follow the steps for part 1 of the project and quickly create our banker bot. Now, I'm going to be breezy through this. I'm going to speed run it. I'll be a little bit quick with this because the detailed explanations are in their relative videos. So if you want a very slower, let's do part 1 slowly together, visit the part 1 video. Same with part 2. But to set up our Lex chatbot, we're going to log into the AWS console, which I already have in my left-hand side, and we're going to navigate to Amazon Lex. So I have it as a quick link over here, but if you don't see that, use the search bar to search up Lex. And let's jump straight into creating a blank bot. So here you can create your bot. I'm going to create a blank bot. Make sure you're not clicking on the descriptive bot builder, and create your banker bot. So in the name, use BankerBot, and in the description, we're going to say BankerBot to help customers check their balance and make transfers. And then we're going to create a role with basic Amazon Lex permissions. No, it's not subject to the COPPA. And we're just going to create this now. And I think the next page is where we're going to select the chatbot's voice. My favorite is Ruth, so I'm going to use Ruth. And done. We can start creating our bot. All right, so we will be skipping a lot of these steps because I've already just run through it. But next we're going to create our first intent, which is the welcome intent. So let's create our welcome intent now. So welcome intent. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see this clearly. Welcome intent, and I think there was a description. Welcome your user when they say hello. Input context, output context. No, not yet. We're going to use plain text to add the welcome intent's utterances. So this is basically saying that if the user says, hi, hello, I need help, can you help me? Then we're going to trigger the welcome intent. And then I remember we are going to add the closing response. So the closing response is basically how you respond to the user as to finish your intent. Now, because the welcome intent is so simple, we don't even need to do fulfillment or confirmation, any of that. The other intents we're going to build are going to use some of these in-between steps, but because the welcome is so simple, we're going to go straight to closing response. Hi, I'm BU, the banking bot. How can I help you today? And just save the intent and start building it. So I'm going to click build, and building usually takes a little bit. So this is where you can do a little stretch. I'm actually standing right now, so it's a great time to stretch my legs and also stretch my arms. It really does take a minute or two, doesn't it? And while we're waiting here, if you can remember, after you create and you save the bot and you build it, what's next? Testing it. So now that it's built, let's test it, and let's just make sure it's actually functioning properly. So it's a bit annoying that you can't see the chatbot box. Okay, you can see it now, can't you? All right. So if I were to say hello, nice, it's working. Is this gonna work? Yeah, perfect. Intent fallback is fulfilled. So this is the intent for when the chatbot doesn't quite understand what the user is trying to say as a recap. And what we're going to do now is we are going to edit the intent fallback, the fallback intent's response, so that it's a bit more human-like. You might remember that the generic one, this one that we're seeing right now, is a bit robot-like. It's not really user-friendly. So let's edit it now. So I'm going to edit the fallback intent now for us. And let's see. I remember that what we have to do to edit the fallback intent, oops, we have to scroll down. Yes, so we have a default message ready for us. So in the message field, we're going to change that under closing response. We're going to change the message. Perfect. Add a variation. Why not? What was the variation that we had? Could you try rephrasing that? And let's add another variation. Not sure what you're saying here. Sad face. But I can help you find your account balance, etc. So let's add that variation and update our responses. And I think that's it. Save the intent, build it. We wait again. So we're just gonna wait for our banker bot to continue building. Again, we're just gonna do a little dance while we wait. I feel like this project's gonna make me dance a lot because we are going to be building our chatbot quite a bit. Let's keep waiting. Oh, this one's really making us wait today. And let's test it one more time. So, all right, let's test it again. So before this worked, hello, it could respond. Hi, it could respond. Good morning, it had trouble responding to. Let's see what it says now. Could you try rephrasing that? I could help you find your account balance, etc. So that's one of our variations at work, validating that fallback intent has been successfully configured, which finishes part 1 for us. We're already done with part 1. How good was that? So now that we're done with part 1, we can jump straight to part 2. So let's speed run part 2. Let's see how fast we can do this today, me and you. Part 2 was all about creating a custom slot in our chatbot. Now, custom slots are a bit like form fields, like a field in a form that you have to fill out. And in this case, the two account slots, no, the two slots that our chatbot wanted to know is first, what is the user's date of birth? And 2, what is the account that they're wanting to interact with today? Because the next intent we're going to make is called the CheckBalance intent. And what that means is the user is trying to ask the banker bot, hey, can I check my balance? Now, it's such a broad question that your chatbot will naturally be like, okay, I can check your balance, but which account do you want me to check? Credit, savings, checking? Which account? And after it knows your account type, it's also going to want to know, oh, but I also want to make sure you are who you say you are, because I don't want to give you your account balance if it turns out that you're not actually the user, you're like an imposter. So I'm going to quiz you by asking you, what is your date of birth for verification? So that's the second slot that we want to fill in. And you can just start to see how versatile this chatbot can be, because slot types can be used in so many different ways. Not just verification, not just like figuring out the account type, the bank account type, but also like if you have a chatbot for ordering at a restaurant, it's like, oh, what's your order for today? If you want water, do you want tap water or sparkling? There's so many different ways you can create a chatbot. It's pretty versatile. It's pretty fun. All right, so in part 2, we started by creating that custom slot for the bank account type. And how we did that was we visited slot types in the sidebar. So let's click on slot types and add a slot type, use a blank one. And the slot type name was account type. We'll add that. And let's restrict to slot values and start creating, adding in the account types, bank account types. So, the first one was checking, the next one was savings, the next one was credit, which also had synonyms to it. So Amex, American Express, credit card, Visa, MasterCard, and I think that's it. And then we'll save the slot types. Oh, we'll add the value first. I always forget this part where after I added all the synonyms, I forget to click add value. And that just means like all of the credit types, all of the ones that I've written here don't get saved into my slot type. And I get confused later on in the project. So don't make that mistake. Make sure you click on add value before you click on save slot type. Now, once you save it, you can just go straight into creating that intent for checking the account balance. So let's go back to the intents page, right here, and let's create a new intent, an empty one, and let's call that check balance. Let's add that, and alrighty. I think the next thing was, adding a description for it. And then we're going to add all of the utterances through plain text. So now when the user says, what's the balance in my account? Check my account balance, please. What's the balance in my account type account, etc. It's going to trigger this intent. The bot's like, oh, I recognize this question. I am going to go check for your account balance, right? And the other important point here is I love that this list of utterances starts showing you the custom slot within the utterance, so that if your user already specifies what account type they want to check in the question that they ask the chatbot will just be like, oh, okay, I know that they're wanting to check this account type. I will check that account type without needing to ask the user, hey, what account type did you want to check? it will already read the user's question and be like, oh, okay, I know what account type I'm going to check. It is savings, it is credit, it is checking, whichever they specify. So I think once we specify the utterance, we're going down to the slots pane, which is where we are at here, and we just add the slot. Again, if you'd like to do this slowly with me, please check out part 2 for the section that we're doing right now. But all right, for the slot's name, we're going to use account type, slot type. It will be the custom type we just created, and there was a prompt for which account would you like your balance. Add that. And next is creating a slot for the user's birthday. So let's add the slot now. Ooh. This name is date of birth. The type is their birthday. Oh, excuse me. Okay, there we go. It's working now. And the prompt is, for verification purposes, what is your date of birth? Let's add that too. Okay, so we have our setup ready for the check balance intent. I think we're close to finishing this. Yeah, let's save the intent. Let's build it. Let's wait. So you might be wondering, why do we click like 3 buttons every time we want to test the chatbot? We have to click save, we have to click build, we have to click test. But they truly are extremely important, each of those clicks, in order to eventually open up your chatbot's conversation panel. Imagine saving the intent but not building it and then going straight to test. What that means is the changes that you've made, that you've just saved, do not actually get built into the chatbot you've already set up back in step 1. So when you test it again, well, the changes aren't going to be there. But yeah, save, build, and test is such a common flow when you're creating something. So it's also a great habit to have. All right, shall we test our account balance? Hi. Okay, it's working. Check my balance, please. For which account? Let's go for credit. Ooh, for verification purposes, what is your date of birth? Let's just do a random birthday. Intent check balance is fulfilled. Now, again, doesn't look very user-friendly, and the reason for that is because we can't see, we aren't connecting our chatbot to Amazon AWS Lambda yet. So once connected to AWS Lambda, it will be able to return a bank balance. For now, it can't. But yeah, I think once we click inspect, you can also see what the chatbot has collected data on you for. So it's collected the data account type that you want to check today, credit. It's also collected your date of birth, 21st of Feb 2001, and all of that is collected because your intent check balance had the 2 slots. So that's slots at work. And yeah, perfect. So that's part 2 done. What that means is we can now finally get on ahead with part 3, today's part. I know that setup took a bit of time, but you're here now. We're going to learn how to connect our chatbot with AWS Lambda. It's going to be great. A really, really worthwhile level up for your chatbot. So first, you might be wondering, okay, you've mentioned AWS Lambda a few times now. I still don't know what is AWS Lambda. So if you're wondering what it is, AWS Lambda is a service that helps you run code without you having to provision or manage servers. And it is one of the top services, I feel, in AWS because of how easy it is to use compared to like other compute services, which you'll learn later on, like EC2, for example. And the key thing to remember is Lambda lets you run code only when needed, and its compute power scales automatically. From a few requests per day to thousands per second. All you need to do is supply your code in one of the languages that Lambda supports. And that just makes it so flexible, so versatile, so very much like a set and forget kind of vibe, with AWS Lambda. And if you're studying for, the cloud practitioner cert, you often see Lambda getting compared with EC2 because EC2 is not exactly one that scales automatically by default. But the great advantage with EC2 is that there's a lot of ways you can customize it. And those customization options are a lot wider. Like those options are a lot wider. There's a lot more you can do compared to Lambda. But, as you can probably guess, Lambda is a much more beginner-friendly option, and it's much more, I would say, a lot more easier to use to connect to other services. So you're gonna see that at work very, very quickly today. Cool. In this scenario, yeah, we are gonna be connecting AWS Lambda so that it can return the user's bank balance figure. And how we'll do that is first we're gonna navigate to Lambda. Gonna click on that. And we're gonna create a new function. If you're unfamiliar with the word function, what function basically means, it is basically a piece of code. It is like a set of instructions that you will run, that you will ask Lambda to run for you. And another fancier word for run is execute. So sometimes they'll be like, oh, Lambda executed this piece of code. And it basically means you gave Lambda a piece of code and Lambda went through it and ran that code to make it work. So in this scenario, we're going to create a function. So we're going to create a piece of code that Lambda is going to run, and you can give your function a name. So the function name we can use is BankingBot English, and the runtime. Make sure you're using Python. Okay, change this to Python because the language of the code we're about to give you is in Python. And next, let's create the function now. Select create function. It is that button at the bottom here. And what you're going to do next is you're going to put a function that we're providing you here for this project and then paste that into your AWS Lambda function code kind of text editor. So you'll see it here. You see here that in this function that you've just created, there is space for you to paste in some code that can run for you. And in this case, it's given you some sort of dummy code that doesn't actually do anything. But what you'll do is you just open this code file that we've provided for you here and run that. So copy all of this, okay? A great trick is if you're using Mac, you can just click Command A while you're in this window. If you're using Windows, I think Control A has the same effect. And once you've copied it, you can paste it right in here. So make sure you're replacing everything, okay? Don't leave a single line of this code in here. We're gonna replace all of it. And yeah, so that's your Python code in your Lambda function now. And if you're new to code and you're still very, very curious, what does this code actually do? Can you talk me through this? Sure can. This is what this live is for. As a general summary, this Python script does help your chatbot give users a quick answer about their account balances. So when someone asks their account balance to your chatbot, Lex will ask this Lambda function to run the code. Hi, Jong. It's so good to see you. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm so happy to see you here. Hi, Jong. And Lambda, what it's going to do once your Lex chatbot says hey, I have this user, it's asking me for the account balance, Lambda will pick a random number and pretend it's the balance. Now, of course, you'll be saying, I don't really think that's how account balances work. It's not usually a random number. Correct. So if we're actually using real data with real account balances and real users, we will be connecting this to a database, and we'll be asking Lambda to can you swim through this database and find the specific user's matching account balance. But in this case, we're simplifying it a little bit by showing you a random number, and we'll just call that the account balance for a user. But if you are very curious about this function itself, now there are a lot of mini functions within this and this can get a little bit complicated. But I think the most interesting one to look at is that there's a function called CheckBalance. Now that is the same name as the function as the intent you've created. So I think the interesting thing here is, look, it says balance equals a random number, right? And it says, the text says, thank you. The balance on your account, so account name, is balance. So the random number is just generated dollars. So you're gonna see this response come through very, very soon. But already in your Python code, you can see that there's code basically saying you're gonna return to the user a text that says, thank you. The balance on your insert account that they're looking for account is, and then a random number for the balance figure. So let's jump straight into seeing that happen in our chatbot. So what we're going to do is make sure you deploy the code. Now, choosing deploy is as important as choosing build, when you're done editing your chatbot. So make sure you click on deploy. And once you're done with deploy, you can go straight back into Amazon Lex, your chatbot service. Before I forget, I almost missed this. Screenshot the code you've uploaded and then head back to your documentation template. Let's not forget to document today. So I'm going to go quickly screenshot the code we just uploaded and write the documentation. Oh no, that was a bad example for me. Don't follow what I just did. Don't forget to document, guys. So, this screenshot doesn't have to screenshot the entire code piece. It can just be like an excerpt of it. That looks great. And in your documentation template, let's paste that code into here. And it can just look like that. It doesn't have to be like a perfect screenshot. So in your documentation template, there are always prompts for you to fill in. And these prompts are here to help you with figuring out what do you actually write when you're writing your documentation. So here, AWS Lambda is an AWS service that helps you run code without servers, without having to manage servers. And in this project, a Lambda function was created to explain the purpose of the Python file the Python code that we just pasted in. What can't your chatbot do on its own that required a connection with AWS Lambda? Billy, you say that this is exciting. I completely agree with you. It is very exciting. So in this project, a Lambda function was created to generate the user's bank balance. In this example, a random figure was generated. However, in the real world, the Lambda function can be used to extract the user's bank balance from a database. And you can be very, very clear in your documentation. You can say the Amazon Lex chatbot on its own would not be able to generate a bank balance. That's why this connection to AWS Lambda is crucial. All right, perfect. So we just added some documentation to explain why we needed to connect our chatbot with Lambda. And now let's move on to the next step. So this next step, says choose deploy, which we have done. And now let's connect Lambda with Amazon Lex. So head back to your Amazon Lex console. So in here, let's search Amazon Lex. Let's click on that. And let's head back into the bot that we've created. So before we head back to the CheckBalance intent, which is the intent that we created to represent how we're going to help the user check their account balance, we're going to be going to that very soon. But before we do that, we're going to go into the left-hand menu, Click on the bot that we've created, and in the left-hand menu, click aliases. This is a new term in this Amazon Lex chatbot. So you might be wondering, what are aliases? Why are we using this? So if you're wondering this, think of an alias in Amazon Lex as a pointer for a specific version of your bot. So when you're connecting Lex with other AWS services, those external resources will connect to your alias, and that alias will connect to your bot. So it's almost like this is your Lambda function. This is your Amazon Lex chatbot. In the middle is your alias. So your AWS Lambda function is like, I'm going to try communicate with Amazon Lex. So it's going to communicate with your alias, and then your alias will go straight to pointing to the chatbot that you have. So now, instead of always updating your apps or updating your AWS Lambda function to connect to the newest version of your bot each time you update your bot, that can take a lot of time. So instead of that, you can just update the alias, that middle connection, to point to the newest version all the time. So now all of your functions and all of the apps that want to connect to your chatbot can just connect to the alias, and this alias will be like, okay, like it will automatically update every time your chatbot updates. So this has saved developers a ton of time and reduces the risk of errors. So it's very, very helpful. And to use aliases today, you will see that there's already a default alias in here that's called testbot alias. And now testbot alias is the default version of your bot that's made for testing or development. It's like the playground version of your bot. If you're going to be deploying your chatbot into the real world, you will create a new alias and call that like production alias, for example. And that alias will represent like the latest production version of your bot. We don't need that today, so we won't be going into something a bit too in-depth. So we'll just use the testbot alias that's already given to us by default. And under languages, click on English US. And here, do you see that? A handy panel that's just for connecting your chatbot to a Lambda function. That is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So on the source, we're going to click on Banking Bot English. Banking Bot English was the name of the chatbot that we created just now. The name of the AWS Lambda function that we created just now. Click on that. And then here there is a default value for $latest. So this is just saying that your alias will always be using the most up-to-date version of the Lambda function. It will always use the latest version of that Lambda function. And let's click save. All done. Nice. So we are halfway done already. Next half, now we have connected our chatbot to the AWS Lambda function. That's a big tick over there. Great work. Next, we will need to make it very, very clear in which intent in our chatbot are we going to actually use the function. So we are going to head back to our CheckBalance intent. Click on intents and click on CheckBalance intent, which is what we created just now. And now we will connect this intent with the AWS Lambda function. To do that, what we have to do is go into the fulfillment panel. So let's scroll down. Let's go find fulfillment. Can you find fulfillment? Do you see it? Do you see fulfillment? Yeah, it's over here. Very nice. So run a Lambda function, that's what we're doing, to fulfill the intent and inform users of the status when it's complete. So this is a bit of a generic description, right? What's on this page here. So if you are wondering, what is fulfillment? I still don't really get it. This is what fulfillment means. So in Amazon Lex, a fulfillment means completing the intent, answering the question. So with your banking bot, after a user tells your bot, okay, this is the account that I want to check my balance for, and this is my birthday, I'm going to prove to you that I am who I say I am. Now your bot has all of the information it needs to move to fulfillment. And when it moves to fulfillment, It is basically answering the question of the day. It is going to answer what is your account balance. So in this case, how is it going to do that? It's going to do that by connecting to the AWS Lambda function. So let us expand that unsuccessful fulfillment little toggle, and let's click on advanced options. Oops, I don't think I clicked it properly there, so let's click it properly. Oh, okay, it's here. Okay, so this little panel just popped up here, and these are all of the settings. These are all the advanced settings you can use just for fulfillment alone. So you can see just how many things you can customize and tailor with Amazon Lex, and it's why you can literally spend like a whole week in here and create some of the most in-depth chatbots in the world. But in the meantime, we're going to be using a very, very simple option. In this panel, the very, very top panel says Fulfillment Lambda Code Hook. So you can enable Lambda functions to initialize the conversation, validate user input, and execute fulfillment. Now, this is what we're going to be using AWS Lambda for, right? So what we will do is we will click the little checkbox that says use a Lambda function for fulfillment, and that's all we need to do. Update your options. You're done. Now, actually, I'm going to open that panel again so you can see this panel. Do you see the term code hooks? This is the first time the term code hooks has popped up in our project. So you might be thinking, what are code hooks? And code hooks help you connect your chatbot to custom Lambda functions for doing specific tasks during a conversation. So like they're basically a hook that you use to hook a piece of code to the chatbot that you're using. So it is honestly a very, very simple term. It means something very, very simple as well. It basically means we're hooking a piece of code into the chatbot that we're using today. And perfect. Essentially, because code hooks exist, your chatbot can start do things like beyond what a chatbot can usually do, which is just like, oh, I recognize what you're trying to say. I'm going to give a response. Usually a chatbot can't really calculate. It can't really perform like logic or like do calculations in the way that a function can. So code hooks basically really help to upgrade your chatbot to the next level in that sense. All right, so we're going to, we've clicked on update options, and now we're going to do the classic save and build. So we've saved the intent, and in the top, we click on build over here, and let's build. So we're going to do a little dance as always to build our chatbot. I'm going to drink a bit of tea. Man, every time this builds, I get surprised at how long it might take. But at the same time, it is still less than 1 minute long. So maybe it's not that long. I feel like before AWS Amazon Lex made things really simple, chatbots probably take a lot longer to build. So thank you AWS. All right, now we can test if our chatbot works. Oh my gosh, I hope it does. I really hope it works. So let's click on test and see. Let's find out. So shall we have a conversation with our chatbot? Let's start by saying hello as always. Hello. And it says, hi, I'm BB, the banking bot. How can I help you today? Let's do something that will trigger the fallback intent, like the one that we built before. Yeah, if you do something a bit silly like good morning and not really spell the morning right, it might not quite understand what you're trying to say. So it might say, could you try rephrasing that? I can help you find your account balance. I can help you transfer funds. I can help you make a payment. So, okay, let's say, what's my balance? Do you think it's gonna recognize that? Oh, it does. For which account would you like your balance? Oh, which account should we choose? We have credit, we have savings, we have checking. Let's do checking today. I want to check my checking account balance. And next, for verification purposes, what is your date of birth? So now let's pass through our date of birth, and let's just do the same random birthday that we used. Oh. Do you see that? Goodness! Before, it said, after we give the birthday, it would say, intent check balance is fulfilled. Okay, which wasn't exactly what which isn't exactly what a user will want to see. Now it says, thank you. The balance on your checking account is figure $456.82. It's working! This is so cool. Okay, so as a reminder, do you remember what we put in our Lambda function? I'm just gonna go back to that so you can refer to it again. But if you go to your Lambda function, do you remember how we said that you can see it here? Oops. Handshake, Zhang, exactly that. So in the check balance intent, we already said thank you. The balance on your blank account is, a random figure, dollars. And that's exactly what our Amazon Lex chatbot just said to us. So that is exactly that Amazon Lex AWS Lambda partnership at work. It is fantastic and it is working. So that felt very, very good. And yeah, now that it's working, screenshot your conversation with the chatbot. And sorry about that. And make sure the screenshot includes evidence of the chatbot returning a bank balance figure. So let's do that, right? So let's take a screenshot of our chatbot. I think this looks good enough. Hello, can I please take a screenshot? Okay, this looks good. I think I like this the most. Nice, let's take a screenshot. So let's screenshot this. And documentation time, head back to your template and head to the slide titled Connect Lambda with Lex. Add the screenshot and fill in the prompts. So let's fill in the prompts in that next slide here. Looking good. Boom, done. So let's fill in the prompts now. To connect, there were 2 steps to connecting the Lambda function with my chatbot. Step 1, to connect Lambda with my chatbot alias, let me zoom in so we can all see this together. Okay, so to connect Lambda with my chatbot alias, the font selector popped up. That was not supposed to happen. I visited the alias page of my chatbot and connected my testbot alias, my chatbot's default alias made for development and testing, and connected my testbot alias with the latest version of the AWS Lambda function defined. Step 2. Another intent setting to configure is code hooks. A code hook is, why do code hooks exist? A code hook is a piece of code that can be connected to my chatbot to perform functions, actions that my chatbot cannot do alone, by default. In this project, I had to use code hooks because we had to use code hooks because the chatbot is not able to calculate, return a bank balance figure, on its own. It really can't. It can understand a user's intent. It can respond using pre-configured responses that you put into Amazon Lex, but it really can't organically, dynamically return a bank balance figure on its own. So, oh, there's more. There's another prompt, but I might be running out of space. Oh no. So when that happens, usually what I do is I do sacrifice a bit of the documentation template space. The screenshot space. I might just put this here. I think that still looks okay, right? Does that still look okay? I hope that still looks okay to you too. And I might make this look a bit smaller, like this. And then you can drag this out like this. After connecting Lambda with my LexBot, what could your chatbot do after enabling the code hook? Ooh. After connecting Lambda with my LexBot, my chatbot. Man, it's so cool. My chatbot could immediately start returning bank balance figures, specific bank balance figures. The AWS Lambda function would generate a random number each time. And that is true, because let's ask our function one more time, and let's try check another account balance, see what it's going to do. Okay, so imagine saying check my balance one more time. For which account, let's say credit. It's going to ask for my birthday again. Let's do a random birthday. Look at that, a new balance figure, $17.52, completely different to the number it first gave us, which was like $456, because it was pulling a completely random figure again. Doing a great job, AWS Lambda. Thank you so much. So now that we filled in this, wow, that is a pretty hefty documentation page. We can go back and we're done for today. We can start cleaning up the resources. So it's time to clean up those resources. Let's make sure we don't rack up any charges, because like I've mentioned at the very start of this live, this project will remain free as long as you remove all of your resources at the end. So if you want to keep your bot for the next project, my advice is that you do the next part, honestly, within the next day or two do part 4 in the next day or two. But I really wouldn't recommend keeping your bot for too much longer. And I think the biggest risk is not that it will start charging the minute you keep your bot for longer than 2 minutes. It's the fact that usually after 2 days, you kind of forget to delete it. You will just forget to delete it. And the moment you forget, it would just start sitting in your account quietly, and it's slowly racking up charges eventually. So 3 steps for deleting everything in this project today so you don't get charged. Remove the banking bot from Amazon Lex, remove the function that you've created, and then remove the function's log files. And we're going to go into what log files mean in a second. But first, let's remove the banker bot itself. So in Amazon Lex, you can remove the banker bot by going all the way to the side panel, clicking on that, and then looking for the bot page itself. So select bots here, and you're gonna see your banker bot as an option. Click on that little circle icon, and under actions, delete it. So let's click on that handy delete button. It's deleting, and it's successfully deleted. And let's go into our Lambda function. So you can find that here. And let's delete that function as well. Click on that little checkbox next to it. Click on that checkbox next to it, and click under actions, click on delete. Type delete in this field to confirm it. Start deleting. And it's already deleted. So you can see that this text is already turned into green, which means it's successfully deleted. and close that now. Last is the log function. The function log files. So if you don't know what are function log files, there's an explanation here. Log files are records of events that happen when AWS Lambda functions are running. It's kind of like a logbook, like a history book of all the times a Lambda function was run, like it was executed. So these logs include details like, oh, was there an error? Was there a warning? Was it successful? Were there any messages that popped up that you could look at and review in the future? It truly is a great single source of truth of all the times your Lambda function was used and whether or not it was successful or any other important information you might want to know. So I know it's not relevant to what we're doing right now, but these log files were legendary whenever I ran into a complex error that I couldn't quite diagnose myself. Like when an error pops up in my management console and I don't quite understand why this error existed, and I have been using a Lambda function, you go into your log files and you read what shows out in your log files, and it will help you with diagnosing your error. A lot of the times it does, and not always. Sometimes you might still not understand your error even after reading the log file. But if you haven't done that yet, you should do it. It is really, really helpful. But, in this case, we didn't really need to refer to it. All we need to do is make sure we delete it because these log files would have been created every single time your Lambda function returned a bank balance figure. And why do we need to delete it? Because it will take up storage space. And what does AWS charge for? Storage space. It will charge you for that. So let's make sure we delete them. And these log files, the sneaky thing about this is they're not even stored within AWS Lambda. It's stored in a different service called CloudWatch. So let's find CloudWatch. Click on CloudWatch here. And in the side panel, you'll be able to see something called log groups. Now let's click on log groups. And there you go. Banking bot Lambda is here. Okay, you might see you only have one log group in your page. I have two because another one got created when I was testing this project. But let's make sure we delete both of them. Bad of me that I didn't delete it last time. Under actions, delete the log groups. And delete. Whew. I think that's all of our resources deleted today, guys. Step 6 is to wrap up your documentation. And like I mentioned at the very start, I promise that I will show you a very quick fire way of editing your documentation. So I'll show that now. So when you get to your home page, first you can reuse the screenshot that you put here in your homepage, by the way. And if you don't know how to do this, you can literally just copy here after you right click, paste it here, and then use that to replace the frame like that. But what I really wanted to show you is under here, you will see there are a lot of instances of your full name in your GitHub repo. And a very quick way to replace all of these, first, you just copy this, Command F, you search, and this pops up again. You Command F, you search within here, your Canva file, paste it. You'll see that your full name thing has shown up 8 times, and you can use replace with. So use replace with to type in your name. Click replace all. Boom. Now your name is automatically in all of the times that you see this. And it is just such a time saver, right? So you don't need to do it again and again. And again, you can do that with your GitHub repo as well, if you want to use it. So find, and after you copied it, just paste, your GitHub repo, the text. Again, this is shown up 8 times. Oops. Again, this is shown up 8 times. Replace it with my GitHub repo URL. Let's say that was my URL. And click, apologies for that. Click replace all. Boom. Now, every single instance of it has your GitHub repo URL. If you want, you can do the same for your LinkedIn URL, but the GitHub repo URL is the default one that we're using here. And yeah, as always, if you'd like to replace this with, an image of yourself, just drag in this image and drag that into your frame so that it goes in automatically, and you can adjust it as well. Just all you have to do is double click on the picture, and there you go. You can start adjusting it in here. That's perfect. You can, and there you go with your documentation, like little image icons. But of course, this, what is Amazon Lex? And there are also pages for your reflection. So you can also do final thoughts, my key learnings. Of course, don't forget an error to check any errors you run into. There's also this final page, like find this helpful. And it's a great closing page if you were to share this on LinkedIn. But yeah, I will leave you to it in terms of filling out those pages. I can't wait to see how you fill out your key learnings and also your final thoughts. Please share them in the community, once you've written those out. I absolutely love reading them. They make my day. And that concludes our project for today. So, when you're done with your documentation, like I've mentioned, please share your work with the community. If you're shy about sharing, the first thing you could do is email it straight to me. I read every single one of them. I really do. I also give feedback on them. If you're wanting feedback, I give you a few tips on how you can improve your writing or other things you could include in them. And yeah, when you're ready for it, you can click on this link to just share that PDF straight with the community. So when you're in the projects page, you can click on the project part 3 and add your documentation to the comments. And it is just a fantastic way to show the community your work, and everyone celebrates it with you. And last, you can share it on LinkedIn, which will be OP. That will be the final boss level of sharing your documentation. So once you share it on LinkedIn, just know that the first post is always the hardest, but after that, it gets easier. So we've even created a copy you could use. So you can just paste this copy straight into your post, and you attach your documentation as a document to your post, and all done. And yeah, that is a wrap for today. We've deleted all our resources, so we're done now with our AWS account, our AWS management console. You can just close that right now. And that is done. So that project was just part 3 of our 5-part Amazon Lex chatbot series. So we will have 2 more parts to go to level up our chatbot 2 more times. Crazy cool. But in the next one, you will learn how to level up your chatbot again with the ability to remember the user's birthday and use that information in another intent. So I can't wait to show you that in our next YouTube Live. But if you're ready to get started with part 4 right away, we actually just released it in the community, so everyone in the community has early access. But if you are following the community right now, you can find it here. Let me show you. You can find it by clicking on all AWS projects right here. And you can see part 4 is already released over here. It's already ready for you if you're wanting to give part 4 a go. But, if you're ready to wrap up for the day as well, I think that's completely cool too. Today, you have learned how to define a basic intent. You've created a list of utterances. You've built and tested your chatbot. With the CheckBalance, as always, you have learned how to define a custom slot type and use that. But most importantly, in this part of the project, you've used Lambda functions. So you've learned how to create a Lambda function. You've learned how to integrate that Lambda function to your chatbot. And you've figured out how to activate that Lambda function using code hooks within your chatbot's intent, the CheckBalance intent. Look at that massive list. You've outdone yourself. Thank you so much for joining us in today's project. I can't wait to see you in the next part, and please hang out in the Nextdoor community in the meantime. At the time that I was writing this project, I was saying like, wow, it is crazy that we have 250 people in there. Today we just reached 410, which is amazing. Like it's only been a week, or less than a week. It's only been a week since I wrote this, and we're already at 410 people. So thank you so much for being a part of this community's growth. It has been absolutely stunning. It's been a dream. And I can't wait to see you in the community and see how you find this project. So, of course, shout out to the people who are in this live right now. It really means a lot. I remember every one of you. Thank you, Jong. You're an absolute legend. And I can't wait to see you guys next time. All right, that's it from me today. I'm signing off now. See you in the community. Bye bye.